I just thought it'd be funny if I just had ing.
Hi, welcome to Comic Talk. I'm Josh.
Now I need to think of something to do. That'll be the thing.
This is our pull list review episode for December 30th. I just asked that. I managed to keep it in my head for an entire 25 seconds.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I am too. I'm proud of me. This week we got 4 things to talk about. We have Deadpool and Cable split second, number 1. This, I think, is a limited run. Ringside, number 2. Dreaming Eagles, number 1. This is a Garth Ennis book. What is Aftershock Comics?
Yeah.
Aftershock Comics. We have a holdover from last week. We had a snafu with the local comic shop. We couldn't get a hold of this. They just didn't get any in. This is the Astonishing Ant-Man number 3, so we're going to go back and talk about that one now.
Diamond slighted us.
Fucking Diamond. So we're going to start out talking about Deadpool and Cable split second. This is Nasitia Fabian. I feel like this guy made his name this way just to be a dick. Brown Lyston. Man, I'm a failure.
Not a good day for names.
Yeah, Lyston and Charalampidus. Charalampidus.
Hey, we got Riley Brown in there, though. Good old Riley Brown.
Good old Riley Brown. He's helping us out. He's trying to keep it simple.
This issue is basically Cable tries to keep Deadpool from accidentally killing a scientist that he just saved.
Mm-hmm. I had pretty high hopes for this book. And I felt like it only got like halfway there to
Really?
where I really wanted it to be.
I thought it was hilarious.
Really? You
Yeah.
really enjoyed it?
As far as the Deadpool stuff I've read, probably my favorite ongoing was the Posehn, which I know people were kind of real like hot and cold about. I really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is even funnier than that.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good. It's a little slapsticky.
It's Deadpool.
It's not like Waypool, you know, Daniel Way's Deadpool, where it was all chimichangas and tacos, but it's somewhere in the middle of the two. I think it's a little more goofy, I think, than even the Posehn stuff was, and that was written by a comedian.
Yeah, but the goofiness is part of the allure. Like, I love the scene where he comes home and his wife is performing this satanic ritual, and he gets like super pissed, and we find out that it's because she was wearing sweats when he came home.
Sweatpants.
Right.
Yeah, this is one of those books that has like a lot of funny moments to me, where I liked the idea, felt like, oh, that's clever, that's funny, but the book overall didn't flow for me that well. I didn't find myself ended up like by the end of the issue being invested in the story or wanting, like, I could just read this issue and then then like the next issue could be something completely different. I don't feel like it would matter, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can see your point there. But again, with the Deadpool title, like, that's kind of generally the way it is. Ones that try to get too deep into a story or something, a lot of the times just end up kind of blah. Like the Art of War was kind of like that. Like, they had this really good concept of going through like all the chapters of the Art of War and stuff, but it just wasn't that funny of a book, and it just came off kind of awkward and
Sure. It's okay. That's the way I felt with it. It's not blowing me away as much as you seem to like it, but I wouldn't say it's bad. If people like Deadpool, no,
it's fine.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Sure. I think that's good. Let's move on to something with a decidedly different feel and style to it. This is Ringside number 2. This is Keating, Barber, Go, and Marr.
Dan keeps plotting against people that beat his ass in the first issue.
Yeah. I'm getting more into this. I really like the feel of this story.
Mm-hmm. I like this issue a lot more than the last one, too. My complaint on the first one was it just seemed a little bit wrestling trope heavy. Like, they just seemed like super stoked to be doing a book about it. And,
right.
This one definitely peeled back from that a little bit, and it got kind of tasteful with it. Like, at one point, his friend gets a call from the promotion that he's working for, and the guy like totally looks like Vince McMahon, you know, and just little things like that. It's a lot more tasteful than the last one. And the story, I think, is really coming together. I think at the end, it seemed like we were going down this very obvious path. And then the first thing that happens in this issue is we absolutely don't. You know, somebody tells him exactly why he's being a dumbass and why they're not going to help him.
Right.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, I loved that. That's really what set the tone for this and has now told me. I think this informs the reader, like this first thing that happens in the first few pages, what kind of book this is going to be. And it's not where I thought it was going to be going.
Exactly.
Which really got me excited to read the rest of the issue. I'm still super on the fence about the art with this.
Yeah.
It's not so bad that it makes it hard to read. I never felt like the art in this gets in the way.
Yeah, you don't have to like study something to figure out like what the hell's going on or something.
In fact, it really, the characters are very clear who is who. We never run into that problem with this book, but it just still feels like halfway finished art to me.
Yeah, it's a little blah. People are just kind of round and
very, very thick, heavy line work. Very little in the way of hatching or any sort of shading or three-dimensional. It's just...
Yeah, really, I mean, there's some shadows here and there, but as far as like pencil shadowing, there's really not any.
Yeah, it's the only sort of three-dimensional aspects to any of this or anything to try to make this feel not completely flat on a single pane is the colorist here, doing like some digital shading.
Right.
But even that is very simple, like two-tone shading. Like it's just really, really simple art to the point of being on the verge of awkward or feeling underdone.
Yeah. I don't think it's doing as much to serve the story, certainly, as it should. And again, we get this picture on the cover that's great.
Yeah.
You know, like, why can't the art just be like this?
Right. And this is the cover. Let's hold this up again. Even in black and white, you can get a good idea what it looks like. It's not like incredible art even for the cover. And the cover artist is the same. It's the same guy as inside. But his cover art is what I would expect for interior art generally. Right. Whereas here, the cover art is
better.
Yeah, I mean...
Just a better version of the same.
Yeah. If we had at least this detail inside, it would be better. But it doesn't even reach that level. But I mean, we can harp on the art, but really, it's the story that gets you here. There's a cool mystery that's building on like who are these people? What did Dan? His name's Dan Gnosis or something like that. What did he do? What is he embroiled in? And we're slowly working down this rabbit hole, and he's talking to different people, and the way the story flows feels much more natural than your normal like mystery story. It's these small little bits of movement, and we never get anything fed to us. Like we're two issues in, and we still have almost no idea.
It's not really scattershot in the least either. I mean, we get little bits removed from him and what he's doing, but a lot of it's just kind of him just going about his day and shit and trying to figure things out in various ways, like talking to different people. And
yeah, I really like the approach to the writing here. I hope the writing stays this taut, I think would be a good way to put it. It's you can tell it's very laser focused on what they're trying to accomplish with the writing. It makes for a really good read, I think.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, cool. All right, so let's move over to this Aftershock Comics book by Garth Ennis and Simon Colby. This also has John Cleese, I think is the name. Cleese. Weird week for names. And Rob Steen. This is Dreaming Eagles #1. And it's apparently based on like a true story. It's like the Tuskegee Airmen. So
sure.
What do we have here?
We have a father and son. Father being World War II era fighter pilot, and son being Martin Luther King era civil rights, which is when this is set. And really, a lot of this issue has just been the dynamic between the two, and where they're ideals sort of cross and where they don't, and what sort of tension that creates between them.
So this is a really grounded kind of story, both artistically and from storytelling perspective. We don't have a lot of big bombastic stuff happening here. There's a few quick shots of like
Fighter pilot shit.
fighter pilot stuff happening with some pretty brutal overtones to it, and, some gory situations. But really, like you said, this is kind of a coming of age tale for the son, but I don't feel like the story's really about the son. The story is really gonna be, I think, the father telling his story
imparting
to the son.
wisdom upon his
Right.
son.
And for this, we're getting the build up to that. Like, he's trying, I feel, to give us some character, like, so we understand who these people are and why they would be talking to each other to kind of reel us in.
And why it's important for him to be talking to his son and stuff like that. We get this picture painted of him being very closed off and very calculated and such. So yeah, it's a big deal that he's opening up to his son like this.
Right.
Talking about shit that he still has nightmares about.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought this was really well crafted.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really drawn into this series. We grabbed this one on a lark. We had a light week. So, hey, why not grab a Garth Ennis book from Aftershock Comics? I'm super glad we got this. I'm really into this now. I think this is... Not a lot even happens in here, but I was really gripped by this. I really was pulled into this story. I feel like the way this is grounded in the civil rights era, but tells a World War II story about, the black pilots in the Tuskegee, whatever. It's just such a clever way of telling this story and really drawing it in, because, I mean, I don't have any frame of reference for either of these two people, but somehow putting these two people against each other, like a black man in the civil rights era, working through his feelings with, a black man from the World War II era, just somehow it makes me, as like a white suburban guy, I feel like I'm learning, not in like a totally boring, like textbook kind of way. Like it seems
like it's gonna be a good story.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I'm almost a little bit disappointed that it's a limited series, but I guess it would kind of have to be,
Yeah, it's
kind of want to tell a story and get out.
Yeah, there's a story to tell, and then after the story, what else are you gonna do with it?
Sure.
Yeah, cool stuff though.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm curious as to whether or not Ennis is going to stay with him after this and do more titles.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, it would be cool.
Because I was looking through the back and I don't remember seeing even any of the other books.
Yeah, we'll have to look at what Aftershock is, because I don't know. I've heard of this Replica, which is another book by Paul Jenkins and Andy Clark, so I don't know. We'll have to take a look and see if they're doing anything else interesting, or if Garth Ennis is like the thing that they're banking on,
Yeah.
Cool stuff. I really would recommend that title. I like it a lot.
Yeah, definitely pick it up if you're a fan of indie shit.
Yeah, or Garth Ennis. Like, it's really good for Garth Ennis. It's more reined in than his normal stuff. He's done stuff like Preacher, and like really kind of ridiculous, but gritty. He's Gritty McGrit. But this kind of reminds me of the same thing we're getting with Mark Millar, where
I was just gonna say that with Jupiter Circle.
Yeah, where it's much more reined in and personal feeling. Cool stuff. All right, so let's finish up. Let's talk about Astonishing Ant-Man number 3 from last week. This is Spencer Rosanna Dana Boyd.
Bobana. Banana Nana Fofana. He helps out Captain America.
Yeah.
Captain America.
Not Captain America, Captain America.
You're right.
Just black Captain America.
Yeah.
Which
he's been working on projecting his voice though, and the posture and everything.
Right. Man, this comic blew me away.
Yeah.
I loved this one. Hilarious. What'd you think?
Yeah, it was a good chuckle.
Yeah. Can we call this postmodern comic book writing.
I think that's fair. I mean, certainly, you know, going back to Deadpool and stuff, there's not a lot of that, like, fourth wall breaking, whatever, but he does seem to have a very good sense of, like, the world around him and maybe insight into the way that people, like, see things without necessarily crossing that fourth wall barrier. Like the Captain America thing. Like,
Right. Well, and even when Captain America shows up and, you know, he says, hey, I need your help. And he's like, oh, hi, Sam.
Yeah.
You know, and then he's like, what's the matter?
Inner monologuing.
Yeah, sorry, I'm working through some inner monologue stuff.
Yeah.
You know, because we get the first couple pages, it's the standard like comic book inner monologue, and then it breaks, and he's aware of the fact that he's inner monologuing to us. So it pulls you down into it. It really makes you feel like you're inside his head.
Yeah.
In a way that most people wouldn't even attempt that. Like that's such a weird like skirting that fourth wall kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, I think it's clever though. It's great. I mean, the fourth wall breaking thing's kind of been like so overdone now that, I mean, again, you can keep it with Deadpool because it's kind of his thing, whatever. But you know, when you see it too often, it just feels cheap and kind of lame. And like in the early 2000s, when you had all those sitcoms with people like talking directly to the camera, and for a while, every fucking sitcom would have people just talking to the camera. It's annoying.
Right.
But yeah, this does a good job of not pulling you out of the story while still being able to comment on itself.
Right. And like Deadpool and Cable also, it had a lot of moments in there where it was straight up like, I'm more popular than you now. And, very straight up breaking the fourth wall. And even there was a panel of the comic itself. Like, but to me, that felt so on the nose that it, like I've seen it so many times now that it's not funny anymore. It's just what I expect.
Right.
Whereas this manages to make a lot of the same kind of jokes without just making the comment directly, you know. We get the same
commentary
and the same ideas, but done in a much more subtle way that I think is funnier because you're in on the joke without them quite being in on the joke themselves, you know.
And also the writer not being like, hey, here you go, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Deadpool and Cable to me feels like it should have a laugh track, whereas this shouldn't. You know, this is like the straighter version almost, but with the same sort of comedy. But I think the comedy hits harder because it's less in your face. You know, it makes you work for it a little bit. Yeah.
It's always funnier when you don't expect it to.
Right. And that just keeps going. Like the banter in here is just so on point, like the whole way through.
I really like the way the plot is unfolding too, because it's very like real world problems of tech companies being usurped by other tech companies and stuff.
They're stealing his tech, you know.
Yeah. It's not about like somebody trying to blow up a building or anything anymore. It's about like little power plays like that and shit.
Right. Yeah, it's just all around. It's a clever and like the little story. I like that, like what they had to go do still isn't important. Like that's been the case in this over and over again, and I like that repeated motif of like here's the big setup that normally in comic book world would be the big important thing. Like they got to go beat Giganto or whatever, but it's really broken down into well, I mean, they're superheroes and he's Ant-Man and he's got those things that shrink things, so it's an easy solution, right? You just shrink stuff, you're done. Like as long as
go on about your day.
Yeah, as long as it's something like that, it's not a big deal. It's like these little problems that you have to deal with that are difficult as a superhero. You know, it's all the aftermath and the dealing with being a superhero and how do you make money and like all that kind of stuff is really what is his problem. And like self-worth, you know, it's just so much more interesting to see a hero dealing with those aspects to me than like trying to beat the big monster, you know.
Sure. And yeah, he wears the suit again, like in every panel. But you know, certain ones he's like, yeah, maybe I should get back into like the superheroing thing, just like on weekends or something. You know, when I can fit it in.
Right. While he's in his full on Ant-Man gear, with
he's never taken off that I'm aware of.
with the machine guy and the bear guy hanging out in the office on lunch. You know, it's just so strange. It's so postmodern that there's nothing else. I don't know anything else like this.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit Squirrel Girl, maybe
A little bit, yeah.
Because she's such like a fangirl about everybody and stuff. So.
Right. Yeah, a little bit. This is just unique. That's just all there is to it. I really love this book, and I think more people that are like deeply interested in comics, the kind of people watching our show, I really think they need to be reading this. And we felt the same way though about Ant-Man Second Chance Man. That we actually have a review of that if you look at our I think it's in New Trades.
Yep.
Click on us and look through our playlist. Where we really felt the same way. Like, this is just really good stuff. I'm really impressed with Nick Spencer on this title, and I don't think enough people are reading this. It's
for sure.
Yeah, it's easily one of the best things at Marvel, I think, and it has been for a while now.
And I think as a reader, after a while, you kind of make that resolution that if it's like a big name title, like it has a good chance of not being very good. So Ant-Man being one of those under the radar titles, like you automatically have to pick it up. It's going to be good,
right?
Because the people that are into shit that you're not into are never going to pick it up.
Right. Yeah. There is this thing with like large characters. Like they're handled with kid gloves.
Yeah.
Whereas you get somebody like Ant-Man that isn't as well known, but there is the movie now.
Yeah.
But this doesn't sell that well. Like Ant-Man's never sold that well, so they let more.
And it's not really tied into the universe at this point in the same kind of way.
Yeah, and it's kind of too late now. Like it's over with. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
And I still think there's an argument to be made that the movies probably have little to no effect on comics anyway. Which maybe we should do a video about that sometime.
Do they actually do anything for sales or not?
Right. Yeah. Right. But that would require research.
I don't want to Google shit.
We could do it without the research.
Just theorize.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think people are buying the Avengers. I don't know. It's not on my poll.
Yeah. But it's just, with these lesser titles, they tend to give them to more interesting people because they can do what they want with them.
Exactly.
And I think it's working really well here. We've liked a lot of stuff Spencer's done, or at least I've liked a lot of stuff Spencer's done, and I think you've liked everything you've read by him, haven't you?
Yeah, everything that I've read's been great.
Yeah. He really knocks it out of the park quite regularly, and you really owe it to yourself, Marvel fans, anybody that reads mainstream comic continuity stuff. They need to read this. This is really funny. All right, I'm done waxing poetic about how you're not reading Ant-Man and you're fucking up because of it.
Facebook, Twitter.
If you don't read it anymore, that's your fault at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Facebook and Twitter, check those out. Check back with us on Monday when we're going to be talking about variants and
collecting
in general. The collector's market and such, and how we feel like that affects the big comics, the small, the smaller publishers, the larger ones.
Market in general.
Where it fits in, how it affects us as readers, people who maybe don't care that much about the collecting aspect.
Yeah. Public perception is also a big part of it.
Right. So we're going to try to dig into that and talk a little bit about our feelings on that. It's probably not going to be quite what you expect. We have a pretty good discussion on it. Little secret is that we've already shot it. But yeah, I felt like it was a pretty good discussion. I think you guys will be interested in so you should check back.
Yeah, if you care about our feelings, you can
hear them there. And by that he means don't hurt our feelings by not watching it, because then we would be sad.
Facebook, Twitter.